This story is about how a side character killed the protagonist, only to find himself burdened with the impossible responsibility of saving the world. However, unlike the protagonist, he could not access the system's perks. So, he had to grow stronger and gain allies with his own capabilities. Will he grow strong enough without the system and be able to save the world? Or will he fail once again? One bright morning, a boy woke up from his sleep. As he looked outside, he found himself in a city of the medieval era. He was astonished to realize that he was inside the game he was playing. There he possessed a game character named Corin Locke. The game's name was Heroic Legend of Arhan. It was about various kinds of dangerous events that went on in an academy, and its endless incidents. In the end, even the end of the world was brought up. It was a story of a large scale. But it was okay. Because the main character was going to take care of everything, Corin was just an extra, an NPC in the beginner quest where the main character saves the village. If the story went on just as the games, then everything would be resolved. Then he wanted to take a look at the main character, Park Suho, who was going to become rich and famous soon enough. As he was looking around, he spotted a boy clothed in black. He muttered the words sweet potatoes and Sprite. But Sprite didn't exist in that game. The black-haired boy frantically shouted, and I quote, "I will live for my own sake. Efficiency." Then Corin grabbed his hand, and he shouted, "Hey, me too." Park Suho was also a regular person possessing the game character. If there was a difference between them, it was that Park Suho had a privilege given to player characters. A status window. The problem was that Suho had never played that game before, so Corin said he would guide him. He advised Suho to invest in his intelligence if he wanted to be a mage. And there would be a skill book in the next scenario. That was really important, so he shouldn't ever forget about it. Corin had played all the stories and all possible routes. He was a pro at Heroic Legend of Arhan. So getting help from someone like him was an amazing advantage to have. At that moment, a ferocious monster rushed at them. Suho reacted fast. And killed it instantly. They fought hundreds of monsters side by side, like brothers. He had all the information about the game, and Suho had the stat window and the player system. They were a good duo. With Suho, he believed that they could save a lot of people, stop the world from ending, and even return to Earth. If there was one thing he was disappointed about, it was that everyone in their party was male. That game's charm was that it contained fantasy action, as well as diverse heroines and dating simulator features. Park Suho didn't get involved with any women and only put them in the party when necessary. So at one point, they just ended up with a party full of gross sweaty guys. That was when he should have realized that something was wrong. The Sword Emperor's granddaughter died on the way to the entrance ceremony. The final boss of the first stage, Mariette, went missing. Mysterious disappearances and murders were being reported. The plot strayed from the original story of the game. But more importantly, Park Suho's personality, his real personality, was suspicious. Corin should have doubted him just a bit. One day he followed Suho because he kept sneaking out at night. But he never expected to find a place like that. Mariette Dunalev was one of the game's heroines. But neither Suho nor Corin was able to meet her because she went missing. It was her staff and a hidden piece. He wondered why the Odachi was there. The Odachi also belonged to a missing heroine called Alicia. There were also many other items there that went missing as they were progressing through the game. But he had yet to see the worst of them all. He found Mariette Dunalev's body in suspended animation. At that point, Suho arrived at the scene. He asked him why he was there. Corin asked him what all that was because in the past Suho said that he went after Mariette and lost her. Suho told him that she was a demon anyway, and who in their right mind would want to waste the blood of an elder vampire? He was just using it efficiently. In fact, Corin had drank quite a bit of it too. He was in shock at what was happening. He asked him why he had done all that. Suho said he did that to progress with the story efficiently. Corin's route was way too frustrating. He kept taking losses from trying to save people. He didn't kill those annoying bastards like Jaeger and Lark. He kept trying to protect people they couldn't even manipulate without increasing their friendship level. Using them like that was the most efficient way. So he should listen to him because he was better at that game than Corin. He had lied to him from the start. That bastard was not a newbie. He asked Suho how many people he killed. Suho said that if he got 3 more, it would be 100,000. Korin lashed out at him and called him a monster. He asked him, and I quote, "If you're so obsessed with efficiency, then why did you take the Odachi? Why would a mage take a hidden piece meant for a knight? And what's wrong with a regular elixir? You can easily make it through the stat window. Why did you do all this inefficient bullshit to create this farm? You just needed a sandbag for your sociopathic tendencies." After hearing that, Suho got pissed, and he bashed Korin against the glass. He said, "You're driving me insane. After all I've done for you, you shouldn't talk to me like that. All I think about is you. I should be your everything. I should be your world. You don't even know your place and get hurt sticking your nose into everyone's business. All you do is stare at bitches. How could I? I won't hold it in anymore." Hearing that, Korin was confused. He said, You're not this kind of character. We have been together for 199 chapters, so why are you suddenly trying to change the genre?" Then Suho said, "I removed everything that could get in my way until now, all for our future. The other men I put in our party are just for looking, so don't mind them. The only one I really love is you." Hearing that, Korin punched, and then he tried to get away from that scary bastard. But Suho caught him with tentacle-like magic. Korin was trapped in a weird position. Suho approached him and said that he wouldn't be able to run from him, he belonged to him, forever. He trapped him with a powerful magic, and before he left to slay the Demon King, he said that once that fight was over, they would be together forever. Korin was inside a dark void that Suho had made. The system informed him that the last stage was opening. Korin was worried that Suho would easily be able to kill the final boss. But a few moments later, the system notified him that Suho had died, and he failed to complete the challenge. Hearing that, he was bewildered. He asked himself, did that son of a bitch just lose? Then suddenly, he woke up from his sleep as if it was all a nightmare. But it wasn't. He had regressed 3 years ago into the past. He swore to himself that this time he would kill Park Suho, no matter what it took. In the past, during the water monster subjugation quest, the dam broke, sweeping an entire village along with it. 1,000 water monsters and thousands of people in the town drowned. At such a horrendous scene, Park Suho was laughing. At the time, he simply couldn't understand why he was snickering so much. Come to think of it now, even if countless people died, he simply saw his own profit in it with the chance to monopolize experience. The fucking devil who was only 3 kills away from killing 100,000 people, he could stop him now. Because at that point in time, Park Suho was just a rank 5 bum like him. All the things that could make a player grow start from the Merkaba Academy. And after entering the academy he got a whole lot stronger. The academy entrance ceremony started 5 days later. In other words, the only chance to kill Park Suho was right then. In the tutorial quest, a carriage broke down in the middle of a forest and the mission was to protect the people along with the security guards until it was fixed. Park Suho participated in that quest. A while later, the carriage driver called and informed them that the carriage was fixed. As the guards were about to return, suddenly a log came flying at them. It was thrown by a rank 2 monster, a werewolf. It roared intensely, and Korin arrived right after. He ran as fast as he could, but he couldn't stop it. He regretted not being able to save those people. The situation was bad. Park Suho and the guards told the carriage to go ahead, and they would face the werewolf. When the woman from the carriage called out to him, Park Suho said he couldn't abandon the guards. However, the guards were mercilessly killed by the werewolf. Korin was watching. Before he carelessly got involved with Suho, he had to confirm something. Whether Park Suho of that life was the hero who would save the world, or if he was a possessed player like him. Seeing the intimidating werewolf, Park Suho said, "He's fucking huge." At that moment, the woman from the carriage stepped forward with her katana. She charged at the werewolf, but the monster blocked it. She was the second daughter of the Ardent family who possessed Odachi, one of the 7 king swords. The most influential party member and a named character, her name was Alicia Arden. At that moment, Suho grabbed a knife from his pocket and stabbed Alicia. Seeing that, Korin realized that it was Suho who caused her to die in the past after all. Alicia was confused. As her vision was deteriorating due to the poison dagger, Suho told her that his hand slipped because he was too nervous. But the werewolf was still on a rampage. It targeted her and attacked relentlessly. Suho was watching her, waiting for the poison to take effect. Alicia took a step back and prepared, taking a deep breath to calm down. She focused and activated her unique footwork skill. As the monster charged at her, Suho realized that at that rate she might kill the werewolf alone. He couldn't let that happen, so he threw his knife at her. As she blocked it with her sword, she realized that it wasn't a mistake after all. But it was too late. As a last struggle she flipped her katana and stabbed the monster. In the end, it died, but Alicia was also severely injured. She asked him why, and Suho grabbed the sword and said, "Let's go." Odachi acquired. That sword would only be usable after learning a certain skill, but killing NPCs would bring in experience too. Alicia was unable to move, and Suho took up Odachi to kill her. But at that moment, a bag filled with a certain substance was thrown at him. The substance was all over him, but all it did was annoy him. He shouted, "Who the fuck is it? Come out right now." Instead, 3 horned rabbits came running at him. The mushrooms Korin picked up before were the favorite of forest monsters. So, in the eyes of the monsters, Park Suho was nothing but fresh meat marinated in some tasty powder. As Suho faced the monsters, Korin took that chance to save Alicia. He was also interested in the werewolf, so he was extracting something from its mouth. But at that moment, Suho came up behind him and asked who he was. He said to him, 3 horned rats killed in 1 minute, great to have Odachi, isn't it?" Suho was shocked to see that it was the named side character, Korin Locke. Suho asked him, "How come you're here?" Seeing his reaction, Korin realized that Suho did not have memories from his past life, which was great for him. He confused Suho by saying, "You're gonna cut your hand off if you hold the sword like that." As soon as Suho hesitated, Korin threw sand in his eyes. Without his vision, Suho was flustered and started to wave the sword crudely. Although he was clumsy with the sword, he was quick. Suho surpassed him in every physical aspect, so Korin had to push himself. With the werewolf tooth he extracted before, he attacked Suho. Korin knew that the thought of having that sharp tooth ram into his neck reeked of death. So Suho would have no choice but to focus his attention on that tooth, until he would see nothing but that tooth. At that moment, Korin with his other arm took out his knife, and stabbed him. As Suho screamed in pain, he decided to finish him with the tooth. Korin aimed it at his neck, but Suho desperately stopped it with his bare hand. In that decisive moment, Korin put pressure on the tooth with both his hands and stabbed his neck. As Suho was dying, Korin thanked him for his past life. It was true that he could have grown much stronger had he let him live, but even so, he had no regrets. Because he killed the seed of a monster. Park Suho, the man who was chosen by the system, died. So the system was malfunctioning, and it calculated that the next best person to clear the main scenario would be Korin. So it passed down Suho's experience to him and the minimal stats. As a succession requirement, it gave Korin a rank class martial master successor. Then he looked back and saw that Alicia Arden was still alive. He asked her if she was okay, and she said, "I'm not, I can't see." But he was relieved that she at least had enough strength left to speak. Judging by her symptoms, it seemed like she was infected by the peacock tree frog's poison. On top of that, one of the werewolf's fangs was stuck in her body. He needed to quickly stop the bleeding and detox her. But it would be a problem if she bit her tongue, so he looked around for something for her to bite on. He took Suho's arm and told her to bite on it. Then he proceeded to treat her wounds. He pulled out the tooth, then wrapped her wound with his shirt to stop the bleeding. Even though killing Suho had made him sour, he felt content to have saved a person. As he was preparing the antidote, he told Alicia to hang in there. Alicia asked for his name, but Korin told her that she didn't need to know and that she should get some rest. It was better for him to keep as many people in the dark about his actions as possible. Then he finally got a moment to figure out his current situation. The story of Heroic Legend of Arhan, as the name says, is the story about the hero. While solving the incidents and accidents that would occur at the academy, the player would become the hero who would rescue the world. The hero must take down countless villains with the final boss at the end. The only reason that the devil-like Park Suho even went along with the story was that if the final boss wasn't defeated, the world would end. However, that player just died. Then who would fulfill that role? He must do it. But Korin was pissed because even though he had become a sub-player, he couldn't access any of the benefits of the system. So he had no choice but to use external factors to the system. He drew a rune. He was desperate to survive as well. As someone who didn't have any talent for magic, the only magic he learned was rune magic. They were ancient letters with magical powers of their own. Duty, restraint, oath. Known as the runes of the Three Commandments. They were some of the most powerful laws of that world, which were the source of superhuman strength and the cause of destruction. He would inscribe all three of those onto his body. Among them, the first one was duty. That commandment grants the caster extra powers when honoring a self-imposed oath. One can keep doing stable duties such as not eating chicken, but since they're very easy to adhere to, they barely earn any stats from them. In conclusion, although it's pretty demanding, he needs to make promises that he'll have to follow until the end. He took an oath saying, "I shall not turn a blind eye to the misfortunes of the good people." The rune of duty was inscribed and would grant him the privilege of earning stats whenever he cleared a quest. But on the flip side, he would lose 10 if he failed to do so. The second rune he inscribed was the rune of spirit. In that world, everything had a spiritual feeling to it and astral beings such as ghosts and fairies existed. But because of the rune of spirit, he could not interact with spiritual beings, nor could the spirits ever interact with him. That penalty became a shield that guarded him against all spiritual beings. And then, the last one, oath. That commandment, using the weight of the oath as a backup, carried a great risk. That's why neither Park Suho nor he used it in his previous life. But even Park Suho, who used everything in the system, failed in the end. In that case, there wasn't the slightest need to worry. He took the oath with the most weight to it, "I shall save this world." The great ambitions the warrior must pursue. An oath seeking literally the greatest ambition. The commandments were complete. The system showed that the commandments would be applied to the sub-player. Failure to uphold his oath would result in inevitable death. The next morning, when Alicia Arden woke up, she found herself in Merkaba City's emergency hospital. Alicia asked the nurse where her savior went. She told her that he had already left. The only trace left of her savior was the belt that he used to stop the bleeding. 3 days later, Merkaba Academy's entrance ceremony was held. When Korin was checking his wallet for his student ID, he found a letter written by his mother. It said, and I quote, "To my proud son. You don't know how proud I am of you. Become a wonderful man who protects many people like those who are by your side as great protectors." Korin Locke was a normal incompetent child. But even he had a family. When he first possessed that body, he acted awkward and unfamiliar. But they treated him as a family without any strings attached. And that's how he began to love his family and that world. That was the difference between Park Suho and him. When he went to apply for the academy, he ran into a beautiful blue-haired girl. She asked if he was a new student, and offered him a potato. As the magic train ride departed, it turned out that she was their guide. Her name was Mariette Dunalev, a powerful second-year mage at Merkaba Academy who was blessed by everyone. But as life goes on, people experience a lot of unpredictable misfortunes and tragedies. This includes Mariette Dunalev as well, who is destined to taste despair, which ends up turning her into the first act's final boss. The train Korin was riding finally reached its destination as Mariette handed everyone a sweet potato before bidding everyone farewell. At the Merkaba Academy, many students had gathered for the test. But just then, a space expansion magic had started. Everyone became startled as nobody could see the dark, except for Korin, who already knew beforehand that this would happen. Suddenly a loud voice told the students to not get flustered. The sudden voice caused the students to get startled even more. Korin recognized the voice to be Old Man Hamen's and thought that it was like a boot camp. This world's population has a history of battle against the evil tribe. The most effective weapon against the evil tribe was superhumans who were able to use aura and mana. And the place that developed those superhumans was the Guardian Academy, Merkaba. Fermac Damon, a professor at the academy, was in charge of the new students' welcoming ceremony. Fermac told the students that all of them must have come here to be either a knight or a mage, but before that, they must show their abilities to the professor, as many of them are still just the average Joe. As Fermac was done talking, a status window appeared in front of all the students which showed the ranks of their aura, mana, abilities, and overall rank. Corin had low aura rank, but his other 3 stats were even worse. Due to this, he got put in the 6th, which is the lowest rank. Seeing the stats, Corin thought to himself, how boring, but my physical stat is appealing. Fermac then explained how the rankings worked and told everyone to stand in front of the number sign that matched their own number. While staring at his number sign, Corin once again questioned himself, there's a cap of 400 people, so why am I in the bottom 1%? Fermac then wished all the students good luck as the practical rounds was about to begin. A female professor told the other professors that there was no need to measure the 1st and 2nd rank students. Granddaughter of the sword genius, Alicia Arden, Avelowan's druid, Yule, mercenary of the sword control, Dron Warsky, and Golem sorcerer, Chronal London obtained the 2nd rank. The only 1st rank was the heavenly Yiksha, Waran. A male professor then questioned if there was any point in testing the 6th ranks, as even the 5th ranks were not looking great. He then said, let's throw out the incompetent 6th ranks to begin with, but before he could finish his sentence, the blonde female professor got angry and said to him, the director said that all students should walk the path of learning. Do you disagree with him? Feeling pressured, the male professor remained quiet before starting the test. A weapon box appeared before Corin. As this test puts you into a place with nothing and makes you fight monsters based on your level. Corin called this test as unfriendly as ever and proceeded to pick a weapon from the case. As he picked a weapon, Corin thought to himself, most of the 5th and 6th rank students probably won't even be able to think and will just grab whatever they can. And that's most likely to be a sword. That's what I did in my last life's rank test too. The test began as 3 5th rank monsters, called shorthounds, appeared. Corin once again thought in his mind, well, swords are usually cool, but they say it takes 100 days to use a spear, 1,000 days for a blade, and 10,000 days for a sword. So the answer is, a spear. He threw his spear at one of the hounds, resulting in killing it instantly. He then took out the other 2 hounds before they could do anything. Corin took care of the shorthounds within 12 seconds and thought to himself, in my previous life I couldn't even kill these shorthounds and got eliminated. But this time is different. I'll kill them all until the next rank. Corin soon realized that he had hit the 5-minute mark and questioned why there wasn't anything else coming out and if the system was broken. The male professor monitoring the students pitied them as most of them could barely kill a monster. He said, back in my day I could kill 5th rank monsters in 1 minute and 22 seconds. Then suddenly, he noticed Corin being lazy as no monsters were appearing. The professor thought it to be a bug and brought out the shorthounds again. A few minutes later, the professor again saw Corin slacking off and angrily questioned if the system was malfunctioning. Another professor arrived and said that Madame Josephine's test magic had never made a mistake in 20 years. He asked the angry professor if he had seen the monsters get summoned, to which the angry professor replied by saying that he didn't feel like there was any need for him to see that. The 2 professors again summoned shorthounds for Corin to fight. Seeing the hounds made Corin angry as he was tired of fighting the same enemy. Corin then threw 3 spears at the hounds at the same time and killed them instantly. This shocked the professor as he finished it in only 7.3 seconds. They called Professor Fermac to have a look. They asked Fermac about the fastest record for the 3rd and 4th ranks, to which Fermac replied, there's a kid named Jigar who got 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Seeing how good Corin was at throwing spears, the professors thought him to be the son of a hunter and summoned a mat boar for his next challenge. But Corin was able to defeat the boar in 3.7 seconds. His next opponent was an owlbear, a 3rd rank monster. Corin swiftly attacked the owlbear while dodging its attack. He then used rune magic to burn the owlbear, which surprised the professors even more. The rune magic Colin had used didn't have much effect on the owlbear, but it was enough to block its vision. Colin took this chance and pierced the owlbear with a single thrust. Corin exceeded the professor's expectations as they wanted to see him fight evil spirits as well. They began the 5th rank evil spirit test, but due to the restraint, Corin wasn't able to see or hear the spirit. He stood still and waited until a minute had passed, to see if the restraint would work or not. After confirming it, Corin decided to give up. Afterward, the students gathered to talk about their test results. Corin noticed Jaeger and remembered their encounter with him in his past life, as Park Suho had killed him because he got pissed off. Then Corin saw another student called Lark, and thought, in my past life, he couldn't get over his inferiority complex, and while slandering me and Suho, he received the same fate as Jaeger. At that moment, the director began giving his speech to encourage the students and wish them good luck. After the speech, Jaeger proudly announced himself as a third-rank knight. Jaeger noticed Lark sitting alone in a corner. He approached him to ask about his rank. Lark replied that he was a 5th rank, which made Jaeger start mocking him. Corin saw this and stepped in to save Lark. He began talking about Jaeger's tattoos. Seeing Corin take such interest in his tattoos made Jaeger excited as well. While talking about his tattoos, Corin thought to himself, I already know all of this. How? In my last life, when Jaeger went missing, his mother came to the academy, saying that his tattoos weren't just for show but something that she did out of worry for her son, who had entered the Guardian Academy. Thanks to his past life experience, he was able to befriend Jaeger and save Lark from getting bullied. Alicia watched the three of them from a distance while thinking of Corin to be a good person, but she was unaware of the plans Corin had set up. Most of the facilities of Merkarva Academy were available for free. The student cafeteria was cheaper than the fast food restaurants outside, and although there were different tiers for the dormitory, they did not charge any money. In this academy, where students were given a lot of free time, the training room, which was open for all the students, was the most recommended facility out of the entire campus. Corin was busy practicing with a spirit body since he could not see nor sense spirits. The senior students watching began laughing when Corin wasn't able to catch the spirit. An instructor approached Corin asking why he was practicing against a spirit body. Corin replied that it was to train his spear skills. Corin began thinking about why the old man approached him out of the blue and if something had gone wrong during the entrance exam. The instructor had a serious expression before handing out 10 meal tickets to Corin for his hard work. Corin felt relaxed that he didn't get into any trouble and became surprised at the instructor's affection. He went back to his training as Marie continued to observe him. Corin again failed to catch the spirit and fell down, but this time Marie approached Corin and said, "You just need to get the hang of it. You'll be able to do it someday. You just need to try again next time," while handing him a glass of water. As he reached out for the glass, Corin thought, "No, I don't have a next time." Back then, there was Park Suho. We had the player's stat window, as well as potions and skill books from the combination window. However, Suho isn't here anymore. I killed him, so now, I must do everything on my own. Corin thanked Marie before getting up with the resolve to become the strongest. He began his training again, this time more determined to break his own limits, as he thought, I had neither a strong body nor vast magic power or aura. Information about player Park Suho and the future was all useless in the face of monsters and geniuses. However, to make it out against monsters and geniuses, I had to work harder than anyone. Corin threw his spear in the air, which confused Marie. She wondered if Corin was giving up. Suddenly Corin caught the spear again. He intentionally shot the spear so he could catch it again, and right after Corin stabbed through the spirit, leaving Marie amazed at his strength. Corin fell down again due to excessive pressure on his body. The next day, Marie was tasked with introducing everyone to the school facilities. During this time, Corin thought of raising his physical capabilities without relying on Suho's elixirs. Corin remembered the commandment, "Don't turn a blind eye to others' misfortune." He approached Lark and invited him to eat together and talk about grimoires. Hearing him mention grimoire surprised Lark, as it can allow anyone to acquire corresponding magic or traits just by reading it. Corin and Lark went to the school's library in search of a grimoire. Corin began throwing books randomly. Lark told him to stop playing around, but suddenly the bookshelf shifted and revealed a hidden door. Corin went ahead inside with Lark following him from behind. Corin suddenly turned back to wish Lark good luck and held his hand forward. Just as Lark shook hands with him, Corin punched him in the face and knocked out Lark, and began smiling with an evil expression on his face. Although the first reason Korin went there was to help Lark, it was also to complete a special quest. If he captures the evil spirit there, Korin could earn the hidden piece he wanted. But there was a small problem. It was a quest made to be impossible to complete. How am I supposed to catch a special evil spirit and not just an ordinary one? Korin wondered. The spirit of the Duke attacked Korin. Most players would die as soon as the quest began. But not Korin. Thanks to his commandment's restraint, the Duke's attack went right through him. But on the other hand, he could not attack the Duke either. Korin called out to the Duke's spirit and asked him to enter Lark's body. In this world, there are factors. This is an element that changes normal humans into demi-humans like vampires or werewolves. One day, Sabancia Duke awakened as a vampire and killed his servant. Although he worked to restrain his instincts, he failed. In the end, out of fear of killing his wife and daughter, he evacuated his family and closed down his castle. He used magic to seal himself inside the book, which is the grimoire inside of the library. The possessed Lark jumped at Korin in a frenzy. At that moment, Korin thought to himself, the second reason I chose Lark is because he has the lowest physical strength stat. He punched Lark once again and knocked him to the ground. Korin then asked the Duke, "Are you curious about your wife and your daughter? And what kind of lives they've lived?" Korin began telling the Duke stories of how his wife died after leaving the castle, and what an amazing adventurer his daughter had become, and how she traveled the world. Korin didn't like the method Suho used. So he wanted to properly end the life of the Duke. Before the Duke ascended, he gave Korin a farewell gift. Soon after, Lark woke up with a pain in his chin, to which Korin acted like he didn't know anything. He then gave the grimoire he received from the Duke to Lark. Due to this thoughtful deed, Korin received 80 points thanks to the commandment. The next day, in the training room, Marie was handing out potatoes as usual when she noticed Korin, who was about to start his training. Marie wished him for the training, but seeing Marie cheer on Korin made the other students jealous. They began badmouthing Korin and said that he would fail to catch the spirit today as well. Marie then bet 2 gold coins on Korin and said that he would succeed. Korin wanted to see how strong he had gotten, so he tried testing the weakest basics first. As he charged toward the spirit with his spear, Korin thought that it would probably be hard to make a single cut with the basics. But to his surprise, he destroyed the spirit with one blow. Everyone, including Korin himself, was surprised at this sudden development of his. Marie then approached Korin to hand over his share of the money she won by betting. Korin was a bit confused at first, so Marie asked if he disliked things like this. Korin then happily took the money with a wicked smile on his face. During the night, Korin was walking down the hallway while thinking of a way to increase his mana. Suddenly he heard a voice calling out to him. Hearing the voice, Korin thought to himself, no matter how much I polish my spearmanship and master rune magic, a bastard I can't beat is already here at the academy. The only female character that even Suho himself couldn't kill. Why is she just randomly there? Korin tried to avoid her, but the girl with dark hair, Waran, suddenly said, "You have been combined. I don't think you're the owner of that body." Hearing this sends Korin into a shock. Hearing Waran made Korin wonder if she knew that he was possessing that body. He then remembered that Waran was a living corpse that had both human and monster souls within. He thought, the soul eyes of those who are in the middle between life and death are said to see the color of your soul. If anything, it might have been strange for her not to see it. Waran then asked Korin how it felt to crush and consume the original soul. Korin casually replied that he didn't know. Korin worried a lot about this in his past life, but it was all pointless. Waran then told him that he was just a thief and a robber and he had no right to have that body. He then told Waran, in the neighborhood next to my hometown, there is someone who turns into a green giant when he gets mad. His name is Bruce. But the funniest thing is his 2 opposing personalities hate each other. Well, that's why it's more fun. Since what they're good at are so different. As Korin kept talking, Waran became more confused. Korin then continued, anyway, what I'm trying to say is that whether it's the original or the newly formed soul, they both have different characteristics. And isn't that how they coexist and live? Whether we want it or not, we were born in one body, and there's no sin in being born. Waran then replied by saying that in this world, there are those for whom being born is a sin. Soon after, Korin left without saying anything else. The next day, Korin went to check the mission board, which can help characters to level up. But Korin's goal wasn't to level up. He then noticed Alicia next to him, who was also looking for a commission for herself. After greeting each other, Alicia told him that she needed money since her family was strict about her pocket money. Korin then suggested she take a patrol mission since it was pretty cost-effective. Alicia invited Korin to join her for the mission, but he refused, saying he had something else to do. After that, he chose an easy mission to find a missing cat named Butterfly. Korin saved and returned Butterfly, who almost died at the hands of the water monsters. This enabled him to block the owner from the misfortune of losing their pet and falling into depression. As a result, he gained more stat points than he would normally earn from leveling up once. Thanks to the commandment, even the most trivial missions would give him incredible spec-ups. Korin then began grinding stat points until he remembered about an important task. At an unknown restaurant, a cook was desperately trying to create the perfect sauce with more than 10 ingredients, but he kept failing to create the taste he was looking for. He became angry at all these failures when all of a sudden Korin appeared at the door and suggested the cook to add starch syrup to it before leaving. The cook thought he was just a crazy bastard but still decided to try out his method. To his surprise, he was finally able to create the perfect sauce he desired. Korin left the restaurant with a smug on his face as he wanted this sauce to be created, to eat cooking from his home world. But what's more surprising was that even this simple task of giving advice made the commandment give him stat points even though he fulfilled his selfish interests. Korin burst into laughter as he got 2 birds with 1 stone. At the same time, Warren observed him from afar. On the next day, the hunting challenge had begun. The first-year students would be evaluated on their survival tactics at the hunting ground. Professor Josephine explained the rules to the students. Anyone who can submit the blue armbands of other students will obtain points for passing the test. The points they receive can be exchanged for a prize. Korin was looking for Warren when suddenly he got approached by Alicia. She wanted to thank Korin for the commission he suggested the other day. Korin then offered her a honey bomb candy, which Alicia took happily. The hunting test began as the students were teleported to a space created by the professor. Korin took a minute to admire the space magic of Professor Josephine before he heard the sound of battle near him. Seeing others fight gave him the motivation to hunt down Alicia, who was the strongest among all the students on the test. He began tracking Alicia with the candy he gave her before. He sneakily planted a tracking rune in the candy. Korin began screaming in excitement with a creepy smile on his face as he tracked down his prey. At the hunting ground, Alicia was ambushed by a group of students, but she defeated them with little effort. One of the students then jumped at her from behind but got blown away by a rock thrown by Korin. Alicia thanked him for saving her, but Korin suddenly said, "So pretty, Alicia." Which made her blush, but before she could do anything, Korin rushed at her with his spear while calling her blue armband pretty. Alicia barely managed to dodge it as she said, "I trusted you. I thought you were a good person who gave me candy," to which Korin replied by saying, "You can become a good person too by giving me your armband." As a top-class fighter, Alicia didn't feel threatened by the 5th-rank Korin at all. Of course, that was until a few seconds ago. Alicia struggled to keep up with Korin's attacks as she was forced to defend herself. She tried taking opportunity of the gaps between Korin's attacks and went for a stab, but due to her lack of practice, Korin easily blocked her attack, pushed her sword down, and landed a stab attack on her, sending Alicia flying. Alicia managed to avoid fatal injuries by using her aura. As she was on her knees, she thought, "It's not that he's strong or super fast, it's just that his level of mastery over each skill is no joke. Just who is this person?" Korin then took her armband. As he was leaving, he was suddenly attacked by a huge sword. Korin immediately realized who used that magic sword to attack him. The sword belonged to Darren Warsky, who managed to take down many students and monsters without taking a single hit. Though he was the same 2nd rank as Alicia, he was still on a different level. Seeing the difference made Korin use his trump card, running away. "There's no good in fighting him now," was what Korin was thinking as he ran towards the cabin to submit the armband. Seeing Korin flee with the armband made Dran angry, he chased after him with his magic swords, and even Alicia ran right after Korin. Just as they were about to reach the cabin, a golem blocked their path. The golem belonged to Kronel Laden, a first-year golem sorcerer who was a second rank like Alicia and Dran. In front of him was Kronel and behind was Dran. With no other options left, Korin decided to fight the two second-rank students at the same time. A few moments later, a student knocked at the cabin's door. Turned out it was Korin and he had 3 armbands with him. A few moments ago, Dran attacked Korin with his sword, but Korin pierced the magic sword's core before it was able to reach its maximum output, and rammed it deep into the ground to make it impossible to be pulled out. Used as little movement as possible, dodged the swords he couldn't block, then guided them to the golems, and moved behind Dran to use him as a shield against the golem's attacks. As Dran was blocking the golem, Korin neutralized the golem and dealt with Kronel. Seeing his reaction speed, judgment, and even psychological warfare gave Alicia a new inspiration to work harder. Korin then advised both Dran and Kronel to improve their techniques and helped them improve. On that day, the 3 named first years came to remember Korin Locke in their own ways. Back to the present, now, the strongest person left among the participants at the hunting ground was the druid, Yule. However, participants weren't the only ones there. The strongest person in that place was known as the greatest mage of the academy, Mariette Dunilef. Since the seniors took on the role of monsters and helped with the practice training, the matchup for Yule was too unfortunate. And that's how the hunting ground practice training ended. Or at least that's what they had thought, until Waran showed up. Waran suddenly appeared as Marie finished her battle with Yule. Marie greeted her with a smile while dodging Waran's attack. Marie then blocked her path with ice magic. As she was playing the role of a monster, she could not ignore Waran. At the same time, Korin was picking his prize for coming first in the test. He decided to take the mandrake seed and some plant supplements and earmuffs. As he exited the cabin, he saw Jaeger and Lark making their way to the cabin. The 3 met up together when Korin asked for help in finding the golem's core. With help from Jaeger and Lark, they were able to quickly find Kronel's golem core. One by one they met up with their other friends. Yule, who was exhausted from her fight with Marie, informed Korin about Marie's battle with Waran. All of a sudden the whole forest shook. As a genius mage, to Mariette, that hunting ground was like a playground. She just needed to manage the difficulty moderately and help her juniors grow. Marie was struggling to handle the situation in her fight with Waran. Although Marie had promised the senior professors she wouldn't use attack magic above the intermediate level, without realizing she had already begun to use advanced magic. Though she wanted to deny it, Marie was already using her full power. After getting blown away, Marie was scared of the natural disaster that was in front of her in human form. She mustered up her remaining courage to attack Waran but was stopped by Professor Josephine. Seeing the professor caused Marie to finally let her guard down and fall unconscious. Korin was scared that she had already awakened as a boss but later found out that she was still normal. At the hunting grounds forest outskirt, Korin was searching for a being who lived there. But first, he put a lot of eye drops in his eyes before slipping near a pond to throw away his seed into it. As Korin began crying for the seed, the NPC of the pond, Taoist Hermit, appeared. Back in his world, people used this Easter egg to double their rare items. Just like the original story, the NPC offered Korin a gold seed and then a silver seed. Korin refused to take both of them and received his original seed instead. The NPC was satisfied with his honesty and gave him all 3 seeds before going back inside the pond. Now thanks to this glitch he could use all 3 seeds to increase his stats permanently. Mariette's encounter with the vampire John Doe was the main cause of her turning into a vampire. To stop this encounter, Korin decided to create a team with strong players. That was part of the reason why he showed off his strength. He planned to propose the party creation 1 week later when the names will fully recover. At midnight, Marie woke up from her sleep, and her attendant who was sleeping beside her also woke up and showed concern for her. Suddenly Marie felt an incredible thirst, as she prepared to bite the attendant's neck. And unfortunately, that is all for now. This video contained the first 10 chapters. I will make a part 2 video soon, so if you don't want to miss that, subscribe and turn on notifications.